Oh, hello everyone, it's Linda here from Just For Tummies. Now, as many of you know, especially if you're a woman, October is Menopause Awareness Month. And on the 18th of October, we have World Menopause Day. Now, back in the day when I was going through my menopause, which is over 10 years ago now, there was very little awareness around menopause. There were lots of botanicals to help reduce menopause symptoms like black cohosh, red clover, ginseng, evening primrose, but very little in the way of awareness how times have changed. Now, today I'm very pleased to be speaking to someone who's been a guest on our videos before, Jane Barrett, nutritional therapist. And Jane is, she tends to specialise in women's health, although, she will obviously see men and children, but she specialises in digestive, gut health, bladder and vaginal health, and of course, helping women transition through the menopause. So I've got quite a few questions to ask Jane. We want to keep it to time, to about an hour. We find that difficult sometimes because we always have so much to say. But I'm going to invite Jane into the video and crack on with the questions. Oh, I can't find my mouse. There we go. Hi, Jane.
Oh, hi, Linda. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Have you had a good summer? Have you had a good summer?
Oh, gosh, that seems so long away. Yes, I did actually. I had a lovely summer, but I feel fully fledged into autumn already.
Oh, yes. I love the autumn, don't you?
Yeah, me too.
I like what you've done with your room. Have you decorated since last time we spoke?
No, I think I did this a couple of years ago, actually. It's sort of, I've got a very autumnal theme, actually,
You
because I
have?
love autumn. And you can't see my curtains, but they're also orange and green and grey. They're really lovely. And that's my orange sofa over in the
I can
corner
see that.
there.
So is that wallpaper then?
It is wallpaper, yeah.
It's lovely. I really
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And I can see you've got Mr. Pooh there on
I've
top of
got,
the
yes, yes, Percy Poo there, yeah.
Mr. Pooh.
Oh, yeah.
Because we do love a good conversation about poo, don't
We
we?
certainly do. And we will try to keep to time. We always have so much to say, but we will.
We will, yes. Right, okay. So let's start then, Jane. By first of all, I mean, a lot of our community at Just for Tummies will already know who you are. But for those that don't and have never come across you before, can you tell us what you do, how long you've been doing it, and why you love doing it?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I am a nutritional therapist, but I specialize particularly in gut health. But as Linda said earlier, I also specialize in urinary and vaginal health because they're very linked, which I do come on to talk about a bit today. I have been qualified 10 years now, and I was not qualified, but I became quite an expert in nutrition before that because I became so interested in it and I spent a long time trying to sort my own health. And why I love doing it? Well, gosh, I love doing it because I love being my own boss and the kind of the master of my own destiny. But I think for me, I spent a long time trying to find out help to help myself, particularly with gut health. And it took me so long. And I really love the fact that I can help people to find that faster, basically.
Because I think, am I right, Jane, that are you an ex-IBS sufferer? Or was it
Mm-hmm.
more UTI? I can't remember. Was it UTIs, chronic
Yeah,
UTIs?
both UTIs,
Oh,
IBS, yeah, yeah,
yes, yes.
a lot, thyroid. But yeah, I had loads and loads of issues. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so like a lot of us, we came into complementary therapies because we had health issues ourselves and we wanted to find a natural way of resolving them.
exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so can you share some of the typical inquiries that you get from women who are going through the menopause?
yeah. I mean, it varies massively because there are 30 recognized or 30 plus symptoms recognized of menopause. A lot of them are physical, so that might be gut, vaginal, urinary. A lot of them are those three.
Mm.
Then there's also the emotional symptoms, so mood, lack of resilience, lack of confidence, those sorts of ones. And then there's also the vasomotor symptoms that come, so the hot flushes or the sweats. So they're the ones that we most commonly think of in postmenopause, or rather menopause. But the interesting thing is that a woman can have so many of those different ones, and they can vary as they go through menopause. But I see all of them. I see a lot of gut, urinary and vaginal issues, obviously, lots of vaginal atrophy, UTIs, a common UTIs that won't resolve. But I also see a real lack of resilience in women, and a lack of confidence suddenly, and just feeling like there's too much going on, or there's too much overwhelm, or they can't kind of cope what they would normally be able to cope with.
Because of hormonal issues, hormonal changes.
Yeah, because of the hormonal changes. And I think they're often the symptoms that they don't expect to have, whereas they're kind of expecting to get the hot flushes or any of those sort of more physical symptoms. So I do find that women do, they often just don't know what's going on, and actually they don't necessarily always put these symptoms down to menopause. And they'll just say, well, I just don't feel myself, or I feel like I can't deal with what I used to deal with. That's a really common theme I hear.
I've been speaking to a woman today, actually. She's 47, and she's not sure if she's going through the menopause or not, but she's getting palpitations, she's feeling very anxious, loss of confidence, she's getting UTIs as well. She's been to see her doctor, but I mean, I don't know, Jade, is there a definitive blood test that can confirm a woman is going through the menopause, or is it just based on symptoms alone, or is it both?
Well, you would generally go on symptoms primarily, really, and your age. You would primarily go on, because there is a blood test to tell whether you have any hormones there, but it's not particularly reliable, because if you're in perimenopause, you could be up here with your hormones one week and down here, or even the next day or the next hour. They could be up and down. So it's not really reliable until you are truly in menopause.
Yes.
So no, it's best to go by symptoms, to be fair.
I think so too. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So how does menopause affect the gut and digestive system? I mean, when women contact me that are going through the menopause, I'm more kind of gut, digestive. They tell me that they are getting constipated, bloating, and acid reflux, where before they never had any issues with such symptoms, but since they started going through the menopause, they're getting these symptoms, as well as all the other menopausal symptoms. So what's going on with the gut and the digestive system?
Yeah, so there's two things going on with the gut. There's one that's age. So men are not immune to this. So this is for women and men, is that as we age, we reduce our efficient output of stomach acid effectively. Yeah. So, and that can lead to bloating, it can lead to gas, change in stools, constipation or diarrhea, and that whole acid reflux or heartburn type symptom. So that's from the digestive side of it. So that's women and men, that's just an age thing. But then we've got the hormones that we add on top. So the female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So with the drop in progesterone, things slow down effectively. So the gut can slow down and we can get more constipated. And then we get more constipated, we can get more gas build up. So we get more bloating and more discomfort. So that's what happens with the lack of progesterone. With the lack of estrogen, we layer another one, because we've got two of our main hormones. So on top of age, on top of progesterone, we now add in the estrogen, and we further get reduction of stomach acid. So, which is why poor women get more constipated than men do, because they only have the age thing to deal with. We have the age and then the estrogen. Yeah. So we get reduced stomach acid, so layering more, which tend to get more constipation, but also reduced bile. Bile comes from the liver, and that's responsible for our fat digestion and our absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins as well, so particularly A, D, E, and K. So it's really important for gut health, particularly A and D. It also can give rise to nausea. And then, of course, if we get a bit of nausea, we have a lack of appetite. So there's so many options. Now, those are the gut type issues. And then, of course, we have the raised cortisol, which is our stress hormone.
Yes.
And that will affect obviously a more wider overall well-being as opposed to just our gut. But you mentioned earlier about how the menopause affects the gut and digestive system. That's how it affects the gut and digestive system, but we are so much more than just one body system.
Yes.
So we've also got the wider health of menopause. So we've got, I haven't got onto that question yet, by the way.
That's okay. Let's go back. Let's go back.
I'm still this one. So the wider health, the cardiovascular system. So this is the system that drives the sweats and the flushes. The cardiovascular system. But also what it does is it puts at more significant risk of cardiovascular events as we get into menopause, particularly post-menopause, so strokes, heart attacks, etc. Then, of course, we've got our bone health. So we've got a higher risk of osteoporosis. And then our mental health, as I mentioned before, is often the one that's the most unexpected. And brain fog, anxiety. Anxiety is a biggie, and particularly panic as well. Suddenly people start having panic attacks and they maybe haven't had them at all. And just the inability to concentrate, a loss of drive. And I don't mean just sex drive, but just sort of just general drive, really, in terms of their whole life. But it's a real time of recalibrating the brain and the body. And a little bit like puberty in reverse, when we're sort of revving up with all the hormones, we're literally doing that in reverse. So we are recalibrating back to being without these high levels of
That's a good way of putting it. Yes, I like that, recalibrating.
Puberty in reverse, recalibrating.
Okay, so, but of course, menopause, common symptoms are hot flushes, mood swings, and or sleep disturbances. So what's the connection between the gut and these symptoms?
Yeah, well, as we know, the gut's the center of all the health of every single other body system, effectively. There's a link.
It's the master organ.
It is very much so. Now, the main thing is the gut-brain link, which we know lots about, lots of research on that. So the vagus nerve, which runs from the brain down to the gut, and it's a bidirectional system.
Yes.
Although I listened to a Spanish researcher last year who said that he felt the direction was much more gut to brain.
I've read that. Yes.
Yeah, which I would agree with, seeing in clinic what I see. So I think that's interesting. So that's the gut-brain link. Which is
sorry, what do you mean, Jane? Do you mean that once you begin to heal or rebalance and heal whatever's going on in the gut, symptoms of, say, low mood and menopausal symptoms, of course, improve?
Exactly that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Okay, thank you. Right.
So as well as the gut-brain axis, we've got a gut-bone axis, we've got a gut-skin axis. So again, that can be responsible for our bone health and how strong we feel, our skin, how we feel emotionally. So the gut really is the center of all of those things. And then the vagina and the urinary tract are also dependent on good gut health.
Yes.
So again, that can, and again, if you have any sorts of UTIs or thrush type symptoms, they can affect just your mood, full stop. And then the flushes, as mentioned before, are very much under control of the cardiovascular system. It's like our internal thermostat. So it's our little heating control. Are we too hot? Are we too cold? And that goes completely awry in menopause. And many women are throwing off their covers and then they're putting them back on and then they're getting all cold.
Yes, I remember. And when women begin to go through menopause, or when they're in full menopause, it can be a challenging time in a woman's life anyway, because they may have the children have left home, but they may have grandchildren, they may have elderly relatives that need their support. So, and if women are working as well, if they're working full time, it can be a very challenging time in a woman's life.
It's so true. And also so many women in their sort of their 50s are at the top of their game in their career or running their own businesses. And actually then they're trying to deal with either teenagers or children that are left home, as you say, aging parents. And it can be super challenging at a time where they're then starting to feel a bit more vulnerable themselves.
Yeah, not to mention the effect that going through menopause and these other life challenges can have on their relationships,
Yeah.
with their partner.
Yeah, it's so true. I'll tell you a funny little story. That when I was going through menopause, I literally sort of sat down with my husband and my boys, and I said to them, "Okay, I'm going through puberty in reverse. You boys have been through puberty, and this is what you can expect." And I gave them a real sort of little short science lesson on
Mm,
it, so that
mm,
they could be understanding of how I
mm,
was feeling and how I
mm.
would be little bit irrational sometimes, perhaps, with some of the things I said. But it was really good to talk about it openly.
I remember when I had a bit of a meltdown at home in front of my husband Kevin and my son Colin, and their mouths just gaped. They've just never seen me like that before. It just lasted about 30 seconds, but it frightened them.
Yeah, it is.
Um, so it's so important to have that conversation with the men folk in your life. I agree. Okay. Right then, James. So what advice do you give to women for a balanced gut microbiome that supports hormone regulation during menopause?
No, what a lovely question. We love the gut microbiome, don't we? And how we know it's so important to nurture it for every element of our health, but particularly for hormone regulation during menopause. So my advice for women is the same as it is for general health, but with a slight gut bias. Obviously to support the gut microbiome. And number one for that really is variety. Because the gut loves variety. It wants diversity of bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that from eating a wide different variety of foods. Now, when I say variety, I do mean all types of foods, but I specifically home in on what I call my Fab Four, which
Mm-hmm.
are fruit, veg, herbs, and spices.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah.
And the reason I pick those ones out is because
I'm just
they're all,
making a note. Sorry, Jim. Just making a note. Your Fab Four, you call them.
yeah, Fab Four, fruit, veg, herbs, and spices.
Herbs and spices. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And
Yeah.
the reason for that is because they are all things that are very colourful in nature.
Mm.
And it's the colour of them that produce the nutrients that are really supportive for the gut microbiome. So I give an example of turmeric, which is a bright yellow spice, or a green pepper, or a red strawberry. They all have very different nutrients in them. So it's important to have that variety of colour in the diet. Now, on my website, I do have a what I call my Fab Four variety counter, which is free to download. And people can go in there and fill in their variety they've had in that week and kind of add it up.
Where will they find that on your website, Jane? Is it
It's
in
on
the
my web.
drop-down menu?
It's under free resources.
Ah, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's really good. I do that with a lot of my clients I work with, and it's a really good way of just making sure that you're having enough variety and you're not, because we are creatures of habit. We eat the same things week in, week out without realizing we're actually minimizing our diet slightly. So it's really important to get that variety. So that's kind of number one is variety. Generally aiming for, say, 30 plants weekly, just as a sort of a bit of a rough guide.
I'm going to come on to this next question then, because you're covering this now, aren't you, Jane? Specific foods or nutrients that support health during menopause.
Yeah, okay. So as well as the variety, I also like to get some bitter foods in.
Yes.
Because they're really important to get the digestive juices going, to get the digestive enzymes, and to get the stomach acid working. So things like chicory, radishes, rocket, any of those sorts of slightly bitter foods. I'm a big fan of those. But I also
my granddad, who was a herbalist, obviously he didn't go through the menopause, but he was a big fan of dandelions.
yeah, dandelion, fantastic for liver support. Yeah, really good, because you can use the dandelion leaf and you can use the dandelion stem.
Yes.
Root, isn't it? Yeah.
The root. He used, yeah, I think he used all of it actually, but also nettles.
Nettles, fantastic for urinary tract.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Wise man.
It was.
So also, I quite like a few nutrients that are gut healing to help the gut. So things like bone broth. Big fan of bone broth. Fennel, ginger, those sorts of turmeric again. Those sorts of nutrients are really good. But specific nutrients that support menopause. Probably the most important thing, rather than any specific food, and I will come on to some of those, is balancing the blood sugar. It's so important. It's so important in any stage of life, to be fair.
Yes.
It's important for men and women equally. But for a woman going through perimenopause and menopause, it's even more important. In fact, it's kind of non-negotiable, or I think it's non-negotiable, because it stabilizes the metabolic upheaval that we get. And what we're trying to do is to keep our insulin nice and controlled. We don't want our insulin to be going up and spiking up and then crashing down, because then we get on that blood sugar roller coaster, and we want to have a nice even ride. And we do become more insulin resistant in menopause, so it's really important to make sure that we're looking after our insulin production effectively. So with blood sugar balance, there are 3 things that we need for that, which I'll go into in a little bit detail. Number 1 is protein. Number 2 is carbohydrates and whole grain carbohydrates.
Yes.
With fiber, the same thing.
Yes.
And then the 3rd thing is essential fats. So let me start from protein. Protein is a really important nutrient. It's responsible for so much that we have in our body. It's responsible for our strength, for our muscle strength, which of course we lose as we get older. So really important to keep our muscle strength up and eat enough protein. We need protein for our hair. Our hair is 91% protein. That's massive, isn't it? 91%.
It is massive. Yes.
Massive. Exercise, recovery, mood, really important for your mood. It's also really important for your immune system, because all your antibodies are made from proteins. So protein is really, really key in menopause for sure. So that's protein. Secondly is whole grain carbohydrates. So I'm not talking of white rice or white potatoes, but things that are more nutrient dense. So whole grains, so it could be quinoa, it could be wholemeal breads, it could be brown rice pastas, those sorts of things. And not only is the carbohydrate important for fiber, because we obviously want fiber for our lovely perfect poos, don't we? But also the carbohydrates deliver vitamins and minerals. So lots of them are really quite rich in minerals. And energy is that they're really important for our energy, eating the right amount of carbohydrates.
Yes.
So that's number 2. And then number 3 are the essential fats. Now, they are called essential fats because the body can't make them. So we have to get them through diet. And essential fats are really important for the brain and the gut. So if we want this communication between the brain and the gut to be working efficiently, obviously the nervous system provides that. But if we want both ends, both our brain and our gut, to be working optimally, that's where we need those essential fats. And then we've got a much better chance of our symptoms working in concert and our whole gut brain link working.
And this is not just, during menopause, is it? This is all the way through all the stages of our life.
It's definitely all the way through, but it becomes more noticeable if there's a lack of essential fats during menopause, and particularly in the mood.
In mood, yeah. But it's interesting what you say about blood glucose levels, because I've been looking quite a bit into this because of my family history of dementia, and the link between dementia and blood sugar issues. What do you think to these monitors, these blood glucose monitors, that you can sort of stick on your arm, and then you can sort of track your glucose levels using an app? Do you think there's a place for them?
Well, there's definitely a place for them with diabetics, obviously.
Yes. Well,
outside diabetics, I'm not sure. It's not my area of expertise. I do have a lot of colleagues that work with diabetes and work with people that want to lose weight, where they do focus on using CGMs, continuous blood glucose monitors. But I don't know. I see a slight downside to them, where people then get a little bit fixated with, oh my gosh, that porridge made my blood sugar go up. Well, it should make your blood sugar go up, because that's kind of how it works. So I think if there's people with a slight tendency towards some form of disordered eating or getting too fixated, I don't think they're necessarily a good thing.
Not going to be a good thing. No.
But no, they're not something that I use in clinic at all or use myself personally. So I can't comment properly.
That's great. Thank you, Jane. So going back to diet then, so what are phytoestrogens and how do they affect both gut health and hormonal balance?
Yeah, so phytoestrogens are plant estrogens, basically. They're plant compounds that mimic estrogen in our body.
Mm.
So they, notes here. So they are very useful in menopause, the time of menopause. There was a review done actually about 4 years ago that was saying that phytoestrogens reduce the risk of 3 types of cancer. So one was colorectal, one was breast, and one was endometrial. So the research on phytoestrogens is always a little bit sort of variable.
Yes.
But the 2 reasons for using phytoestrogens is the first part of phytoestrogen is because it is a plant compound. It has the fiber, it has the vitamins and minerals that we talked about before. So it has all those benefits, and it's high in water because plant foods are generally. So that's number 1 why they're important. But secondly, it's actually their support of hormones. So what they do is they help to reduce the fluctuations of estrogens, basically. So they stabilize the fluctuating estrogens. And in fact, what I didn't mention at the very beginning was that in perimenopause, so usually from age 35 up to, let's say, early 50s roughly, it's a time of real instability where these hormones are going up and down all the time. And they are up 1 minute and down another minute. And of course, when we get to post-menopause, they are persistently down.
Yes.
Okay. So what these phytoestrogens do is they do stabilize the fluctuating estrogen. So they're particularly useful in perimenopause as well, in menopause too, but particularly in perimenopause. And what they do also do is they latch onto our estrogen receptors. Now we have estrogen receptors all over our body. And they, by latching onto our estrogen receptors, they are blocking the endocrine disrupting chemicals that might potentially latch on. So things like plastics, any chemicals that we have in our household or personal toiletries. So by definition of a phytoestrogen being a weak estrogenic effect, it stops the more serious estrogen chemicals effectively getting onto those receptors. So it works in both those ways.
So can you give some examples of phytoestrogens then, Jane?
Yep, so we've got legumes. So we've got anything in soy. So soy has what we call isoflavones, and they might be in miso or tempeh or edamame beans. Tempeh tofu as well. And what I tend to advise is to eat soy as they do in the East. So eat primarily unprocessed fermented versions. So miso.
You put something on your Facebook page today about miso. Was it today or yesterday?
It was, yeah, it was.
What were you doing? What were you making?
I was making like a tomatoey soup, but I was making it with a miso sachet. And because it's a really good phytoestrogen. So basically I use miso sachets instead of a stock cube.
So
because then I'm getting
head over to Jane's Facebook page, Nurturing Nutrition.
Nurturing
Nutrition, because Jane's always posting really useful advice, and she's always showing pictures of what she's cooking.
I am. So legumes is one thing, so soy, but also sesame seeds are really good. Berries are so good for so many other things. But lesser known of a phytoestrogen actually is garlic. And I'm a big fan of garlic, as I know you are with one of your supplements, because it's so good as an antimicrobial for gut health.
Yes.
And it's good for immune health. So I love the fact that that's a phytoestrogen. So I have 2 special phytoestrogens that are my favorite that I tend to make sure in all women's diets. And number 1 is flaxseed.
Yes.
So it's the lignans in flaxseed, and they are great. So 2 tablespoons every day. If you can stick them onto your cereals, or well, you can get them in any way. You can put them in soups, you can put them in casseroles. So I'm a big fan of flaxseed. And then the second thing I'm a big fan of is cruciferous vegetables. So broccoli, cauliflower, primarily, they are really super for our estrogen detoxification, which is
Savoy
another
cabbage, Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, yes, yeah, they're not so popular usually.
Well, we had savoy cabbage yesterday, and today we've got Brussels sprouts because we do love our green veg.
Yeah, and that green veg, those cruciferous veg, really help to maintain the hormonal balance. So they're kind of my two top tips out of all of those is flaxseed and cruciferous veg.
Right, that's great, thank you. So what's next? Oh, yeah, some practical dietary or lifestyle changes women can make to ease menopause symptoms. What are your top tips?
Do you know, I think being organised and being practical in your kitchen planning, I think, is really important. And often people focus on what they're eating all the time, but actually things like planning your meals, stocking your freezer, batch cooking and stocking your freezer, making sure that you've got all the right things in your spice cupboard or in your dried goods cupboard or your tins cupboard. So I think all of that is really important to make sure that you can always pull things out to make some quick meals.
I don't suppose you have put together a list that people can download, Jane, that tells them exactly what they need to put in their pantry or store cupboard, you know, to help women?
I do have that, but it's part of one of my products. It's in my meal plan, actually.
Your meal plan.
Yeah,
Is that under resources, or is that?
That's not a free resource. That's a £30 paid product. And that's got 50 recipes, but at the back it's got like a shopping list of all the things that you would put kind of in your pantry and under those sections.
So that's just a one-off payment of £30.
Just a one-off payment of £30, and you get 50 recipes.
Good. That's how many recipes?
50 plus.
That's very good value.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Right, thank you. Right. So, did you want to say anything else on?
I do, yeah, because we talked about the dietary, but the lifestyle are just as important.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Managing stress is a biggie. It's a really biggie, and at this time of life, it's just non-negotiable. It really is non-negotiable. And as you said before, women are often juggling so many different things, and it does make it harder. But it's so important. Otherwise, we end up being a pile on the floor and not able to help anyone.
We get burnout, don't we? Yeah.
Burnout is a big thing in women of menopause age. So yeah, for sure. The other thing I like to mention is setting boundaries, and I think some women could do with some real support and guidance and encouragement to set boundaries. And that's setting boundaries with their work, it's setting boundaries with their kids, with their parents, with their colleagues. It's just setting boundaries so that you have time to nurture yourself. And I think that's really important. And women do need an encouragement sometimes to go, it's okay to do that. It's not being selfish, because I use the airplane mask analogy that, you have to put your own mask on first before helping others.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
And I think that's an important one. Big fan of exercise through menopause. It doesn't have to be exercise. It can just be moving. It's just moving. It's walking the dog. But I will make a real case for lifting weights, which is, again, for bone health and also for strength. Women that feel stronger physically generally feel stronger mentally. Madonna did this amazing quote many years ago about something about that, saying, if I feel physically strong, I can rule the world, or something like that.
It's definitely a two-way street. I think I've told you before, Jane, that I'm a member of a women's only gym.
You have, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And it's I've been a member for just over 2 years now, which is a bit of a record for me, because I've tried local authority gyms, private gyms, personal trainers, and I've just got bored stiff. Anyway, so I'm just over 2 years in being a member of this women's only gym, and I absolutely love it, because the average age is about 55.
Yeah.
A lot of the ladies that go are well into their 70s. Some are in their 80s, and a couple are in their early 90s.
Oh my goodness!
And which is, they're a great inspiration. And at the gym, the older ladies tend not to do the aerobic type dancing classes that I enjoy doing, and I can still do. But I do sort of kind of pace myself. In the other room, they've got these motorized machines, these motorized weight machines. And at one time, Jane, I kind of poo-pooed those machines, thinking, oh, what use are they? Are they just a fad, a fashion? But they are so good because they're weighted, and they give your whole body a strength workout. So I look at these women in the 70s, 80s, and 90s on the machines, and they're walking upright and they're striding along. And because they're retired, they can go. Some go every day, some maybe 3 times a week. But you can tell by the way they move and by the way they walk, Jane, but because they've got that muscle strength. You can just tell. And that's obviously, helping with their mental health. It's helping them reach for things, go in the garden, do the housework. If they have a fall, maybe they won't break a bone because they've got bone strength and muscle mass.
And they're less likely to fall. If they feel stronger, they're less likely to fall anyway.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, power to anyone that goes in the gym and lifts weights. And actually, you don't have to do it in the gym. I lift weights here. So under this cupboard, this side, under that cupboard there, right at the bottom, I've got my weights. And I will do that at home. So, you don't have to go to a gym if you choose not to, if you just want to do it in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah, just so important. And especially for, a lot of these women, they live on their own. They may be, they've been widowed. So, they have to do everything for themselves. And if they haven't got strength in their arms to reach up into a cupboard, then, it can cause a real problem with their independence. Right. Okay. Sorry. We have to be careful, don't we? Going off at tangent.
We're doing all right for time. We're doing really well, actually.
Oh, great. Right. So, are there any specific foods or habits that menopausal women should avoid to protect gut health and, of course, to minimise their menopausal symptoms?
Yes, there are. I mean, overall, we want to try and have the widest variety we can and not really limit much, in the ideal world, just for our mental health as well. But there are some notable things that really don't help during menopause. And I'm afraid number one to say is alcohol.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had to come off it completely when I was going through not that I drank a lot, I maybe have 4 units a month.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have one gin and tonic once a week usually, but for a lot of women, it is a real car crash during perimenopause and menopause. And particularly with flushes, I mean, red wine specifically can really get those flushes going.
Yes, that was my experience too. Yes.
Yeah. And suddenly, for those that could drink red wine normally, suddenly couldn't drink red wine. I found myself not being able to tolerate red wine. I generally didn't tolerate it very well before anyway, due to my liver. But I find that women will often say, oh, they suddenly can't drink as much. And they hopefully, the ones that then do bring their alcohol consumption down will notice it. And then therefore feel better and think, okay, well, that's fine. I can reduce my intake. So alcohol's the kind of the top one, unfortunately.
Yes.
The second one is something we did a video on before as well, which is ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
So of course, in ultra processed,
if anyone wants to watch that video, it's on the Just for Tummies YouTube channel.
Yeah, and I highly suggest you watch it. So under ultra processed foods, we've just got so many additives, and of course, your body just gets so confused by these additives. It's like, what's it throwing at me now? So ultra processed foods. Also, the ultra processed foods generally are quite inflammatory in the body, particularly the more sugar, the more salt, the more what I call rubbish fats in there. And of course, inflammation is a key part in menopause. So we become more inflamed as we get older. So anything that we can reduce that inflammation. So alcohol, number one, ultra processed foods, number two. And what did I have as my third? Oh, yes. Also caffeine and sugar. So caffeine and sugar are big disruptors on the blood sugar roller coaster. Now, they're different for everybody. Sugar doesn't really have much use particularly. Caffeine can have some health benefits. But because caffeine will often increase these palpitations, It can increase anxiety in women prone to anxiety. If they're women that are constipated, coffee might be helpful because that might help with the bowel movements. But in someone that's having loose stools, then coffee is not the greatest of things to have. It's also really quite disruptive to the nervous system. And of course, at this time of life, we really want to be nurturing that nervous system and not upsetting it too much, not setting it on sort of spikes and setting it on edge.
It's not good for the thyroid either, is it? Caffeine?
No, because again, the thyroid health is dependent on a good blood sugar management.
Yes.
So blood sugar management is the most important thing because it kind of maintains your adrenal glands, your stress hormones. And if your adrenal glands, your stress hormones are pretty well modulated, then your thyroid hormones in turn should stay so. Yeah.
I know because I've recently had some private blood tests done for my thyroid. I've had an underactive thyroid for many years, and my TSH came out fine. They did vitamin D as well, and vitamin D, CRP, ferritin. They were all fine. Free T4, free T3, absolutely fine. But then when it came down to the antibodies, not fine.
Oh, okay.
So I've had to make some adjustments there, including not be so laissez-faire as to when I take my levothyroxine. You know, being more taking it first thing in the morning and then having something to eat or drink half an hour later. Yeah, so I'm trying to be a good girl with that.
Try to be a good girl.
Right, okay then. So anything else there, Jane?
Specific foods and habits. What did I put on my notes here? Oh, yeah. Also, a habit is overwhelming our digestive system with too much food. Because as we get older, we can't tolerate that with the lack of stomach acid, the fewer digestive enzymes that are produced from the pancreas. So not overwhelming it with food, not having sort of big, really large meals, and not eating too late. Those are two things that is a habit that can easily be tweaked.
Yes, it can. Yes, I absolutely agree with you there. Right, okay. So how do stress and sleep issues during menopause impact the gut, and how can women manage this?
Yeah, stress. Okay, stress is such a biggie. It negatively affects the gut. We know it affects the gut microbiome. We know it affects the immune response. In one of my masterclasses, which is a free resource, I talk about the triangle of gut, health, and hormones. And it's a triangle that works in a positive way, but also in a negative way. So in a negative way, the gut is upset, the immunity lowers. The immunity lowers, the body feels stress. The body feels stress, the gut gets affected, and then it becomes this negative cycle. We can switch it round so that we support the immune system. The gut feels better. When the gut feels better, the client feels less stressed. So I'm going the wrong way with my hormone triangle, but you get the point. It can turn It can turn into a really positive triangle.
But when women are going through the menopause, you know, they don't sleep very well, do they? And that can cause more stress and more issues with the immune system. You know, they can be very tired the following day if they've got busy lives. It's you know, that can be a real problem.
Yeah, it can do. And again, the stress hormone cortisol really responds to a proper circadian rhythm. So ideally what we want to be having light in the early part of the day. So it's just generally recognized that you can get out into fresh air, or at least bright, proper light, as opposed to artificial light early on in the day. That's telling your body that it's okay, it's time to wake up. And then as we get later into the evening, when we want our cortisol to be low, so our cortisol should be high when we get out of bed in the morning to anticipate our day. And then it gradually goes down on this curve for it to be low at night so that we can sleep. And we can do things like meditating at night, or reading books, or keeping away from screens, making sure that we have amber light as opposed to blue light, and keeping our lighting low. So we can do things like that to help the whole sleep response, for sure.
Yes. But I'm just thinking as well with diet, you know, with food, certain things that you shouldn't really eat or drink of an evening that so you know, including not having a big meal and not eating too late in the evening, but alcohol too.
Yeah. It's really common for a lot of people to go, oh, I'll just have a glass of wine after dinner, but actually that, for most people, that's a sleep disruptor. And for some people it might send them to sleep, but it doesn't generally give them quality sleep.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Where are we?
So I'm still on the stress bit, actually,
Oh,
because
sorry, go on. Yeah.
the stress is really important to address, and everyone can address that differently. They can address things in their life that they can address. Obviously, not everything can be addressed. But for things like meditation or yoga or Pilates or finding an exercise class or a hobby or meditation, they're all things that women can do and put into place to help make them feel more resilient.
Yeah, or visualization.
Yeah, visualization is also a lovely one. Again, going back to those boundaries, setting those boundaries. So there's the three things kind of around stress and how they all impact sleep. But also, I just say things like slowing down. And I don't mean just slowing down full stop. If you don't want to slow down, that's fine. But slowing down your eating, your mindful eating, your chewing, it's completely underrated. Too many people focus on what they can eat, or, oh, I think I'm intolerant to this, I think I'm intolerant to that. But actually, if they think about how they eat mindfully, purposefully, slowly, chew really, really well. I have a 20-20 rule, which is to chew your food at least 20 times and to take 20 minutes to eat, or ideally take 20 minutes after eat. Now, we can't always all do that all the time, but it's putting into your mind the fact that we want to slow down around our eating so that we are getting the most benefit from digesting our food that we can.
Well, when I go to the Viva May clinic in Austria, the dining room there, you are not allowed to speak while you're eating. And if you do, no, if you do speak, the waitresses will come up, shh.
Oh, really?
Yes, yeah, because that's, you know, that they consider how important eating, being mindful, and chewing properly. Oh,
yeah.
they're a little bit more relaxed. I was there in the spring, and they're a little bit more relaxed about it now. But when I first started going to the Viva May clinic about 15 years ago, it was the medical director there, Professor Stossier. He ran Viva May. Very, very Germanic in a very Austrian way. I like it, very disciplined, and there was absolutely no talking allowed in the dining room. Even if you were sat with a friend, you know, as I did, if I went with a friend, no talking.
I can see the point of that from a point of view of being focused on what you're eating. However, when you look at the Mediterranean diet, a lot of the benefits for the Mediterranean diet is the fact that they're sociable when they eat, and they eat slowly because they're chatting.
As long as you're eating slowly, that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
At the Viva May clinic, they're trying to teach you, you know, the principles of eating mindfully. They're trying to get you into that habit.
Yeah.
It's not something that you have to follow, you know, for life, but they're just trying to get you into that habit of being more mindful about eating, slowing down, chewing well. Right. Do you want to say anything else about stress, Jane?
Yeah. No, that's it. That's all that in that question. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. So, yes, is there a link between inflammation in the gut and more severe menopause symptoms?
Well, we do get inflamed as we get older and into menopause. So there's definitely a link between inflammation and menopause. And anything that we can do to reduce that inflammation in our body is going to be key. Now, a lot of it I've already mentioned already. So it's making anti-inflammatory choices is really, really key. So good food, whole foods, lots of variety of color, keeping away from the alcohol, the sugar, the processed foods. Those are all super, super important. But also where we know inflammation in menopause is often in aches and pains and joints, often the joints. And what happens is our connective tissue just loses that resilience, unfortunately. And then estrogen, the lack of estrogen means that we lose the elasticity. So that can be mainly in the joints, but also in the vagina, for example, losing elasticity in the vagina, which then causes vaginal atrophy and real soreness. So anything that we can take the burden off inflammation in the whole body is really important in menopause, for sure.
Yes, it's sometimes termed inflammaging, isn't it?
Inflammaging. Fun enough, I do use that word in one of my presentations, actually, inflammaging. Yeah.
Because if we're in an inflammatory state, then it's going to age us, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. We have to
Premature.
really focus on that. We have to, where we could get away with it in our 20s and our 30s and even our 40s, 50s upwards, you can't start getting away with it without starting to get those symptoms.
Yes, right, thank you. Anything more to add there, Jane?
No, that's all good on that question.
Okay, thank you. So, oh yes, hydration. How important is hydration for gut health during menopause?
Well, it's important for gut health, full stop. But during menopause, also, it's completely underrated being properly hydrated. And if I have 20 women in a room and I say to them, hands up who knows they're not very good at their hydration, I absolutely guarantee a good 20% will always put their hands up. It happens time and time again. In fact, I'm doing a talk on Friday and I will ask that question, and I expect it to be at least 20% in that.
Is it a talk to menopausal women that you're doing?
It's not specifically a talk to menopausal women, but probably the majority of them are of that age, yes. But it's hydration is one of the basics, and I think so often we're looking for really complicated things or complicated supplements or complicated recipes, but actually the importance of the basics are key. So we are 60% water in our body, and we need to make sure, and our brain as well, we can't function if our brain is not hydrated. It literally shrivels.
I know this, again, from my mum, that if she's not drinking enough water, she gets more confused.
Yes.
So I'm always watching, how much water she's drinking and helping her to drink water as well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crucial. It's absolutely crucial for so many. Well, for all bodies.
It's the most important nutrient for so many things in our body. It's the number one for energy. It's number one for skin, for clear thinking, and it's our transport system. So water is our transport system. Our blood is made up of, the plasma in our blood is made up of 50% water. So it's important for that to travel around our circulatory system to deliver all our vitamins and minerals, but also to then get rid of any waste via our liver and kidneys. So that's important. I will tell you a little story of my best friend that we've been best friends since we were 4. She's an Ironman woman.
Wow.
Okay. So she's my age. She's 57. And she's just done just over 12 hours. She's done an Ironman. So that's a swim, a cycle, and then a marathon. Oh, I feel tired just thinking about it. But I went to stay with her in August, and I noted she didn't drink very much. And I said, you don't drink very much, do you? She says, no, I don't ever feel thirsty. I just don't ever think about it. So I sort of set her the task of, so when I was there, I made sure that she had a pint in the morning, and I would make her chug it down. And she just didn't even enjoy drinking water. Anyway, long story short, a couple of weeks later, she sent me a message saying, oh, I've got so much more energy. Now, this is from an Ironman. So, yeah, it's really important for energy. Water is, it's the number one. Honestly, if you're not doing water right, or when I say water, it can be herbal teas. So it's hydration, really.
What's your opinion of well, I'm just having a senior moment now. I was going to say sterilizing water, filtering water. Do you have a filter on your water? Yes.
Yeah.
What, do you just have a standard like carbon filter?
I have one that goes under my sink. I fitted it about 12 years ago when we redid our kitchen, but you can retrofit them. And it's just a long filter. That's right. And it just filters. So different filters will filter out different things. Mine just filters out sort of bacteria and things like that. It doesn't filter out calcium, magnesium. I keep those in.
Yes.
But a good one under the sink is about £130, I think. They're really, in my view, they're really worth it.
Yes.
But you can still have like a jug type thing on the side. But yes, I'm a big fan of filtered water where possible.
Okay, thank you. What are some of the misconceptions about gut health during menopause that you encounter?
Mm. Probably one of the biggest ones is that it's just about estrogen and progesterone,
Mhm.
because they're the sex hormones that we associate with menopause. And yes, they are important. And we know, like we've talked about, what happens when you have lack of estrogen, lack of progesterone, and what symptoms it leads to. But actually, they're largely uncontrollable because they are hormones. And the only way we can really replace them is by putting them in as medications. But the other two hormones that are just as important at this time are insulin and cortisol. Now, the good news is we can do loads about controlling those. We can completely control the regulation of our insulin by what we eat, by our blood sugar management, and we can control our cortisol, our stress hormone, by managing our diet and our lifestyle to make sure that we're resilient to stress. So I like to focus much more on how we control the insulin and the cortisol, because they're so controllable. And in again, important for any stage of life, but really crucial in the menopause.
When going through and they can have a massive impact on the symptoms of menopause.
Oh, just massive, just absolutely massive. And that kind of leads me into my second point of that question, is that there's often a misconception that it has to be really difficult or complex. Well, actually, it doesn't. The basics matter. So if you've ignored the basics, such as water, hydration, blood sugar management, managing stress, sleeping well, moving well. Okay, so they're kind of the main pillars. If you've ignored those coming through your 20s, 30s, 40s, often you can get away with parts of it, but you just can't get away with it, when you get into your 50s. So it's so important that all of those now you pay real attention to, and a little bit of everything. And none of us have to be perfect at it. None of us probably have the perfect exercise regime or the perfect diet. And I'm not saying anyone should have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. So I don't expect any of my clients to be perfect. But basics do matter. That's kind of one of the conceptions. Which kind of leads me into the whole HRT thing, which we won't get into in big detail for sure. But one of the misconceptions is that it's essential, that we've medicalized menopause quite a lot, that it's something to be medicalized. Well,
and there's so much information out there. It's just it's just it's bamboozling, isn't it? The amount of information that's out must be very confusing for women.
It is confusing, and it's good that we're understanding more about it for sure. And I'm not against HRT in any way, either taken as a patch or a gel, or as a vaginal estrogen, which can be super, super useful for UTI. So I'm not against them. Sure, it's outside of my remit as a nutritional therapist. But my point and the relevance to the question is that first line of supporting your menopause is with diet and lifestyle. Get those in first, because for the vast majority of women, that is enough.
Yes, if they get those right first, they may not need HRT.
Exactly, they might not need HRT. And I think,
and HRT is not the be all and end all, because I have women contact me, Jane, as I'm sure you do, who have had to come off HRT because their symptoms got worse.
Yeah, and also they don't all solve all the symptoms. For some women, it can be a real lifeline. And I wouldn't ever take that away from some women. And I encourage women to do their research on any medication that they're willing to look at, any medication or vaccine or operation. Always look at the risk versus
the benefit.
Yeah, always. And that's exactly the same with HRT. But for me, it's food first, it's lifestyle first. And actually, not only will food and lifestyle changes make your menopause transition easier, it will make you just generally happier in your life. It will make you healthier and happier and stronger in terms of, like when I started lifting weights, the personal trainer that I was doing the online course with, she just said, well, as we get on, I want to have grandchildren, or hope I have grandchildren, and I want to be able to lift them up and do things.
Me too. Yes, I mean, I'm 65 in a few months, and I've got a 4.5-year-old granddaughter, and we've got a grandson due in 2 weeks. And I want to be able to run and play and tussle tussle with them, and we do that and lift them up, and she'll get on my back, and I'll give her a piggyback, and I want to be able to carry on doing all of those things, as I'm sure other women with grandchildren will want to do as well, including you when your grandchildren come
Yes,
along.
exactly. If I'm lucky enough to be furnished with them, I exactly want to be that, that strong nana who can lift them up and
Yes.
and run around with them. So
Yes.
I think that's important. So yeah, so
So
hopefully
it's much more than just HRT, isn't it? Much more than just taking HRT.
yeah, it's interestingly, actually, it's a bit of a mindset, because when I was doing some menopause research many years ago, and in fact, I think it was when I was studying, there's a really interesting study that comes out of the Mexican Mayan tribes, and how in Mexican Mayan women, they simply don't go through menopause. They have they do go through it. Apologies. They don't have symptoms
They
of
don't
it.
have symptoms.
No.
Yes.
And the belief is, the understanding is that they don't have the symptoms because they go into menopause with this really healthy attitude. And their attitude is it's a societal attitude that women of a certain age are, they're at the highest echelons of society. They are seen as the wise women, the women that the youngsters should bow to. They are seen as incredibly wise women, and therefore they have a really good, strong self-esteem, and their standing in society is so strong that they don't have those symptoms. And I just read that study, and it stayed with me for 10 odd years. And in fact,
But we don't have that in Western societies, do we really?
No, and we do have the menopause this, and I think it is fantastic we have so much more awareness. Don't get me wrong. But I think also we always need to make sure that we are giving women the positive view of what we can feel like. Some women absolutely sail through it and literally don't even know. I had a client last week that just said to me, "Oh, I sailed through it." She said, I really didn't have any issue. So some women do, and some women will find the adjustment difficult. But I think the higher the self-esteem is, I think generally the better the transition can be.
And with self-esteem, into that comes diet, lifestyle, managing your stress levels, getting me time, valuing yourself.
Yeah, that's so important, that valuing yourself. It really is. I think it's kind of one of the key things that I'm always giving my clients permission to spend time on themselves. And I say to them all the time that it's not selfish, it's actually selfless. And then they can look after. So we have this ripple effect with the women, don't we? That women do tend to be the sort of the pinnacle, the centers of the families. And when the women aren't functioning well at all ages, whether the children are young or whether the children are teenagers or they've left home, then there's that ripple effect that goes out, and that's the dog, the kids, the husband, the parents. I think that's a really important thing, that women put themselves first, because when they put themselves first, they are by definition helping all of those people around them.
Everyone else, yes.
Yeah.
And it's about being a good role model as well, isn't it? As a woman, I want to be a good role model for my grandchildren. I want to be there for them for as long as I possibly can, well into my 80s, and hopefully, God willing, into my 90s. I feel as though I need to be there for them, Jane.
Oh, you'll be that lady at the gym in your 90s going, "Come on, ladies, lift your 10K."
Drinking your water, yes, go and eat your fruit and vegetables. We're always having these conversations at the gym. I have to be careful though, really, because I don't come across preachy, Jane. I'm not preachy at all. But when you have knowledge and you want to help other people, you just want to pass it on, don't you?
I totally get that. I'm such in danger of doing that because it's such important information I love to get out there and love to share. So yes, I can be a bit preachy. I'm aware.
Oh, Jane, this has been fantastic. I don't know if there's anything that we've missed. I'm very conscious of the time.
I think covered pretty much most of it.
I think
We've
it's
been
been
pretty
great.
broad.
I think that's great information. And I mean, thank you everyone for watching, or if you're listening. We're going to be sharing this video in one of our newsletters sometime this month, because it is Menopause Awareness Month, and then it will go on our YouTube channel as well. And I'm sure, Jane, you will probably share it amongst your community.
Yes, I certainly will.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, Jane, that's been fantastic. You're always a font of knowledge on all things health and well-being. I love talking to you. So how can people contact you, and what are your social media handles? So just Nurturing Nutrition.
Yeah, nurturingnutrition.co.uk is my website. Everything you need is on my website. There's everything information about me there, and there's lots of free resources. There's some paid resources. There's information about working with me one-to-one. So there's loads there. Facebook is where I'm most active, and that is Nurturing Nutrition Limited. Yeah, I don't do many of the other social media channels, to be honest. So
that's fine. And do you still offer a free discovery call for anyone that's thinking of working with you?
Yes, I do. So that's a 20-minute free discovery call if someone is considering working and wants to chat with me. I advise anyone to go to my website first, read all about how I work on my website, read about my happy clients, because they tell my best story, and they're really inspiring to read. And then, yes, anyone can book a free discovery call. There's no obligation. It's just to find out if we're right to work together effectively.
Yes, because it's very much a partnership, isn't it? Of mutual trust, respect, and understanding. It has to be for it to work.
Yeah, it has to be for it to work, and that's partly the reason for the call, so that the person feels that I'm the right practitioner for them, but also I feel they're the right people for my programs.
Yes.
Yeah,
I totally get that from when I was in clinical practice as well. Right, so I think that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have learned from this video. I always do when I speak to Jane. So thank you so much, Jane. And if you can just, we'll just say our goodbyes, and if you can just hang around for a minute, we can have a quick debrief. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Take care of yourself. Bye.